accidentally drops Travis's camera. And as that camera was falling, that was enough for Travis, because he lunged at Jodi in anger, knocking her to the ground in the bathroom where there was a struggle. Jodi's life was in danger. In just a minute from this picture, we go to the next picture, where it's Travis's body. He's clearly injured already in a minute. Now that very brief moment of time, a minute, is not the result of premeditation. It is not the result of a planned out attack. It is just 1 minute of time between the camera falling until you see the picture of Travis with blood. 1 minute. In that 1 minute, had Jodi not been forced to defend herself, none of us would be here. In that 1 minute, had Jodi not chosen to defend herself, she would not be here.
Welcome back to In Session in the Jodi Arias murder trial. I'm Jean Casares. The jury's on its lunch break right now, so I want to talk about the defense in this case, because Arias's defense team says that their client used deadly physical force against Travis Alexander because she was the victim of domestic violence. Now, under the law, domestic violence requires that the relationship between Arias and Alexander is or was previously romantic or sexual, and that one of several statutory offenses was committed by Alexander. Now, that could include threatening or intimidating by word or conduct, assault, or sexual assault. But my big question is, I want to know how you get from, realistically, emotional abuse, which is terrible. No one should have to go through emotional abuse. But how do you go from that to being a victim of domestic violence? Because that's the missing link that I see with Jodi Arias, and I want to try to understand this a little better. Joining us by phone is the co-executive director of the National Domestic Violence Registry, Cherry Simpson. And also we've got in-session contributor and law enforcement analyst Mike Brooks with us. Welcome to both of you. Cherry Simpson, thank you for joining us. The first thing I want to ask you is, how do you go from emotional abuse victim to domestic violence victim? Is that common, or is it the same thing and I'm missing something here?
Well, it's different in every case. And, I mean, we all know people that can be verbally abusive. We also know domestic violence victims that have been abused physically, emotionally, mentally. Personally, I think this woman is grasping at straws, and I take offense to this because she is walking on the backs of every woman, man, child in the universe that has suffered from domestic violence. And I personally, this is just her word, and he's not here to defend himself.
You know, I guess the problem I'm having is, you know, we've heard a little bit about what he said to her, you know, you're a whore, you're this, you're that. I mean, very derogative things that are just terrible for someone to say to somebody else. How can that then produce a state of mind that you believe someone is going to kill you? Because we have not heard anything about violent acts toward her by Travis.
Well, this is the true fatal attraction. I mean, this woman obviously has mental problems. I mean, she's not told the truth, one. So I don't know why anybody would assume she's telling the truth about the abuse. I don't see any evidence of it. And I mean, I know that everybody that's put into our registry has to prove. I know everybody that has to get an order of protection or protection from abuse has to show evidence of abuse. And it looks like to me the man that was suffering abuse is the one who's dead.
Very, very interesting. Jerry, I want you to listen to Jodi herself. She spoke to the lead detective in this case the day after Travis's body was found. She had called him several times. She wanted to offer help. but I want you to listen to specifically something she says, and I want to get your reaction. Let's listen to this.
Do you know of him having any weapons at all in the house?
His two fists, really, and nothing got.
No handguns or rifles or
No, he wasn't one to keep into that I found.
fighting knives or anything like that?
No, he was more into like wrestling and UFC, and he had, he said he had just bought a punching bag, and he's like, I love the crap out of the punching bag.
Cherry, I find it very peculiar, so close in time to when this happened, and we know she did it all, that she's asked, did he have any weapons around the house? And she said, only his two fists. That was an odd thing to say. Does that go toward it all, that those fists had been used to hurt her?
Was there any evidence of that? I mean, she would have had bruising. She would have had, probably would have told somebody. Is there anybody that was a witness to him using his fists on her? And is there any evidence of him ever using his fists to hurt anyone else?
Which brings me to Mike Brooks. I want to ask you, because I've been thinking about this too. From the minute this happened, it seemed like many people went to the detective and said, and investigators, Jodi Arias, you got to look at her. And Jodi Arias calls 2 times, once on June 9th, the second on June 10th, saying, I want to offer my help. Should Mike Brooks, in retrospect, somebody have gone to her immediately to talk to her, but more than that, to look at her body at all? And I know you can't be invasive, you're not going to have a warrant, but you could see injuries.
Yeah, and we may see, coming out of some of the testimony, Gene, maybe testimony from the rental car agent when she returned the rental car, because she, if I remember this correctly, she rented it on June 2nd and she returned it on June 7th. So, would these, if she had been assaulted, the bruises would be blossoming, if you would, and have changed colors by then, and would be very, very obvious to someone who looked at her. And also any other friends, associates. You talk about law enforcement reaching out to her right then. This is, I think, right at the time that they were starting to develop her as someone who may be involved in this. And then, out of the blue, who calls law enforcement to take a preemptive, hey, I'm here to help you, to give a preemptive statement to law enforcement, when it seemed like she was actually on her own fact-finding mission. Oh, I've heard rumors that there was very, very bloody. What kind of weapon was used? What really happened? No, it's interesting. It's a good question, though, Gene. But I think it was right about then that they were starting to develop her as someone who could possibly have been involved in this with Travis.
Sure. Cherry, I want you to listen to something else. Jodi Arias, the day after the body was found, she's talking to the lead detective over the phone, and she talks about, and she really has more concern about Travis than herself. And I want to ask you, is this a domestic violence victim? Is this the way they would talk? Let's listen to this.
Even though we broke up, we were no longer boyfriend and girlfriend. We decided to remain friends, but, I kind of feel embarrassed talking about this, but it was more friends, but it wasn't boyfriend and girlfriend. It was more like kind of buddies, you know what I mean?
Okay, so you guys were not, romantically together at any time, or?
We were intimate, but I wouldn't say romantic as far as the relationship goes, but we were in no way headed toward marriage. We're talking anything about that. We probably sometimes.
Now you say intimate, does that include a sexual relationship with him?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. I know it's kind of embarrassing to talk about stuff
I know,
like that, but you don't know me, so.
Yeah, and if you could just keep it confidential for now, because I know that he's Mormon. He's not seriously looked down upon him in our church, and I just been telling you this to help in any way I can.
Okay. I appreciate it.
And with us, everybody, is Cherry Simpson. She's the co-executive director of the National Domestic Violence Registry. Cherry, here's my question. Jodi Arias doesn't seem to be humiliated for herself with everything she's talking about, the sexual escapades that they're doing, but she's concerned about Travis's reputation. Why wouldn't she be concerned about her own reputation at that point?
Because she's narcissistic and she thinks she's going to get away with it. And she has, well, said so in interviews with other television stations. I don't know if her religion had anything to do with it, but this man told her no. And she went to a lot of trouble to get to him. And what she did to him is just incredible.
So, Terry, you're not buying it for 1 second that she is a victim of domestic violence, are you?
No, I am not. And, you know, domestic violence happens to both men and women. And it happens to children. It happens to different, you know, gay and lesbians. It can happen to anybody that's in a relationship with someone. But no, she's not acting like a victim. She's trying to portray herself as a victim, you know, and I think that all of that talk that she was doing with the detective was to mislead him. And that's why she contacted them as quickly as she did.
All right. And Terry Simpson, we know that you helped your own daughter escape an abusive relationship, so you know what you are talking about. Thank you so much for joining us, Terry Simpson, the co-executive director of the National Domestic Violence Registry, and also our own Mike Brooks. All right, we're going to turn our attention